we have to fix the problem, not by building bigger fences or more security, but by looking at it and saying, what can we reassign responsibilities to? Who has certain rights to what actually in the situations? And then can we put certain guarantees on those actions? For instance, you, the consumer, now can hold your report. How can we, the conduit, provide a guarantee that you don't tamper with your report in the process of providing that to a provider? Well,
Mhm.
that's where blockchain technology comes in for us. I want to send my Venmo username, but I
Mhm.
don't want to send you all of the transactions. And those guarantees that we get in simple applications is what unlocks scalability. Saying, look, this is what we're going to do. This is not what we're going to do, and we can guarantee it.
Mhm.
That's the way we scale things. People then know what they're using and they encourage others to use it because they're getting the experience they were guaranteed. You've seen, of course, Circle's support for Clarity and the Genius Act. So that
Mhm.
opened up bottlenecks we were concerned with on regards to cross-border payments, and which is again how we want to build, or at least one vein of data that we would like to ingest to help people build their credit reports that don't have a typical bank account with Chase. Maybe they have a Circle account or a Coinbase account, and that's how they facilitate a lot of their payments using a Coinbase debit card. So
Mhm.
we have to look at those things. These types of things evolve, which is why we're not really worried about that bottleneck, right?
Mhm.
Considering that it's a uniform experience for both of them until one of them says, "Hey, I want to open a business," and then it becomes a provider. Uh, but yeah, bottleneck, just people who believe that it's possible to build the things that we can build now. That's the craziest part when you tell people what is possible, and they're like, "That's insane." And then we're over here like, "But we want to build a PDF. How's that sound?" Be certain about every decision you make to the nth degree possible, because you have to navigate carefully, and any setback can be a long time in these industries. So just be certain about the things. Measure twice, cut once. Measure as many times as they'll let you measure.
So most people don't realize their credit report, a document that can shape their entire financial future, is often riddled with errors they can't easily fix or guess. Our guest today is changing that. Welcome back to the Enhanced AI Partners podcast, the show where we explore what top industry leaders are doing differently to thrive in a volatile market. Today's guest is Devon Shigaki, founder of Fresh Credit Inc. His mission is bold: to make accurate credit reports a human right, putting control back into consumers' hands. Devon, welcome to the show. Um, for those who haven't heard about Fresh Credit yet, give us your quick elevator pitch, what it is, who it's for, and why now is the moment to launch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a lot to pack into a short intro. But needless to say, we are the modern operating system for credit verification and payments. What that means is that we have enabled a system that gives consumers the ability to hold their own credit report right on their own device with their smartphone or their desktop or laptop, and present their report when requested to a provider, whether that's a phone, a car, a house. These things are all accessible through credit as a means when you don't have something, which is a lot of people, to be able to get access to a resource or a need. And so the human rights component really is about the accuracy of the report, right? That's why we really want to push that, because the accuracy leads to opportunity, and that sometimes is a job or the right to access certain credit to get a home or to get a vehicle to take your kids to school. These things are all really important, and often we overlook the credit report because we focus on the credit score, but it's derived from a report that the majority of the world doesn't have access to. So even with our bad system that we have here, we put up with it because there's a lot of benefits to it right now, such as the credit system we do have in America. But there's a lot of things we can fix that pull together in a unified vision that, hey, this is something that is accessible, fixable, and repeatable for everybody. Everybody that has a smartphone can partake in this.
That's awesome, Devin. And so, what's the story behind the idea? Was there a specific problem or aha moment that made you start Fresh Credit?
Yeah, it's more like a speed bump going at like 60 miles per hour. So I had my identity stolen, and when that occurs, your life gets put on pause. You don't have access to those resources we were just mentioning. So when it occurred, I was lucky enough to have family and friends that could support me while I spent the majority of my day calling lenders that I never applied to, dealerships that I never tried to get cars from, all because my identity was breached
Mhm.
and a portion of my identity was sold off in these products that you can go and purchase people's information and put two and two together. Soon enough hackers, enough bad actors will. And then it is just a process where you constantly have to clean up this information. For years of your life, some people just give up. And so I can see why. I thought to myself, like, this is not feasible. How do they fix this? Like, the systems are riddled with problems. But then it's like, okay, how do they fix it in the other parts of the world? And it's like, wait, they don't have credit reports. This is this is a PDF, people. This is like not quantum science. It's not AI. It is basic, but it is fundamental. Ray Dalio says that credit is the most important market, but least understood. And the
Yeah.
reason being is that all innovation comes from credit. You can't finance innovation with cash payments. Like that just won't work. The US runs off of 56, 60 trillion dollars worth of debt credit off
Wow.
of about $4 trillion worth of cash. So that should tell you that cash is not actually king. Credit is king. And the access to it is reputation, credibility. So we're not talking about people getting loans. We're talking about people being able to have a report that accurately reflects who they are, because that leads to the opportunities, whether that is a job, a car, a home, a house, whatever it be, an apartment just starting out. Like these things are necessary for economic growth. And so when I went through identity theft, I felt like just dead in the water, and I could only experience what it was like to just not have credit. Having bad credit is, I think, worse than having no credit.
Yeah.
But needless to say, you're both pretty much in the same boat where you are stuck. And that feeling of being stuck, the reality of being stuck, just combined with the obviousness, I was in the blockchain space at the time, working
Mhm.
on a separate project, and that got me a little bit of heat. But at the same time, it was what brought all the right people together later on, because I knew that these things were regulatory issues that were not being able to be solved with the tools that we just have
Mhm.
at the time, right?
Mhm.
Things are just outdated. So then all of the individuals who I met under the not best circumstances became my first points of contact for like, hey, do you think this would fix this if this was fixable? And just explaining the technology for years. So we've been at this for about 4.5 years now.
Oh,
And come October, yeah, it's been a while. We patent some pieces of the infrastructure, so not so that we could become the oligarchs of the
mhm.
industry again, but so that we wouldn't be booted out of our own and could continue to push the local first approach, which is that consumer approach, that provider approach, right? Where it's about protecting the person or entity's data whose data it is. Like that seems like a fair start. And by giving people the keys to their own house, that's a good starting point to feeling a little bit safer, right? And holding your own information, it seems like the obvious and only practical way to solve this problem with what we're dealing with. The
Mhm.
FBI estimates that data breaches are up over 1,000 and about 1,300% data breaches since
Wow.
year over year. Yes, it is insane. A billion people last year had their identity breached, over a billion people. Um, and so when you think about that, how many identity thefts does that actually lead to? People get their identity taken, but it doesn't always lead to a theft, right? We're smart. Some of us say no, but there's certain things you just can't avoid. They get crazier and crazier. So what the US estimates are right now is about 23.6 million people are currently constantly being churned in to identity theft victims, which ends up yielding somewhere in the neighborhood of like 60 to 280 billion dollars in losses to providers. Like that's just estimated. Like these are people we could probably engage with economically and give them resources they need, like a phone or a car or a home. But we can't verify this information is accurate because there's too much noise because their identity's been stolen,
Mhm.
right? And so that experience showed me how helpless it was to first go through the process and how useless it almost is to go through the process. And what I mean by that is that at the beginning, 36% of all credit reports have an error that's significant enough to affect 5 to 25% of the applicants that apply for things, right? So when you consider that that is a huge amount of like reports that are just wrong, but it's the largest market in the world that it bottlenecks, $107 trillion, these don't add up. We need to open up the scale for people to have accessible credit reports that don't have errors. You can't compromise one for the other. Like imagine if we spread that around the world, like, hey, 36% errors, but you got a report now. It's like, well, I think this is going to cause a lot more problems at scale. So
Mhm.
we have to fix the problem, not by building bigger fences or more security, but by looking at it and saying, what can we reassign responsibilities to? Who has certain rights to what actually in the situations? And then can we put certain guarantees on those actions? For instance, you, the consumer, now can hold your report. How can we, the conduit, provide a guarantee that you don't tamper with your report in the process of providing that to a provider? Well, that's
Mhm.
where blockchain technology comes in for us, right? We don't have a token. We don't have tokenomics. We use it for literally a ledger. We believe a credit report is a ledger. A blockchain is a ledger. That seems to be the functional application at its bare bones roots, right? So
Mhm.
the sheer luck that I was in blockchain dealing with a totally different topic in the finance sector, but for trading,
Mhm.
and then had my identity stolen and then me going, wait, I think this blockchain thing might be a better credit report than a store value, guys. And that was not a popular idea, right? The credit in that space was it's still thought to be kind of a bad thing, but
Mhm.
the reality is it's what makes everything else grow. And you see it very, very evidently when you have to go get a loan in the crypto space, for instance, using
Mhm.
stable coins. You're putting up 200, 300% collateral. Imagine going to get a loan on a home and having to put up 200 to 300% the value of the home to get the cash to get the home. Like,
Why even go to the
what?
bank? Yeah.
So that really is evident when you talk to people on that level. But when you talk to a person outside of the Web3 space, outside of blockchain, outside of stable coins, there is just an evident need for people to be able to leverage their current value at a greater capacity to keep up with the world's demand on the resources that are being provided. For
Mhm.
instance, 86% of the global population makes $10 or less. Okay, so those people definitely don't use credit. Like
Yeah,
that,
definitely.
it's not possible.
Mhm.
And then the difference between the 86% to about 94 is people making 10 to $30 a day. So it's like really low still. And then you have that last, 5, 6, 7 percentile maybe fluctuation that are making minimum wage and actually surviving. That's crazy to me, right? But that's evidence showing that credit isn't being used at scale. But why is that? Because we can't scale a broken mechanism. The central model where everybody's at their risk of exposure is just too great. Like we literally can't, the world can't afford to do that, right? It's like saying we got to kill all certain mosquitoes, let's pesticide the whole world at once. And you're like, I don't know if that's a good idea, guys.
I think Florida tried and it didn't work.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, so yeah, that experience, that realization, it was all luck and
Mhm.
timing and bad luck. It wasn't great getting my identity stolen and going through that, but I wouldn't have learned about the system or spent time dealing with the CFPB and learning about the delays that are involved. 30 days for them to respond, 30 days for the party else to respond, 30 days for you to respond, 30 days. And so one incident on your credit report can spend up to 180 days if you're persistent. But if you like miss a day and you got to go through it again and start over, it is like the DMV, but real life all the time, like over your head, and it affects your credit.
That's a pretty good way to put it. So, I mean, from what you've been telling us, you're trying to solve um, a few problems. I know you mentioned, people with cryptos and how I think right now, if I'm not wrong, credit scores don't reflect what's going on behind the doors in your crypto space, correct?
Yeah, for the most part. And crypto in our world is stable coins that
Mm-hmm.
enable people to make payments on their obligations.
Mm-hmm.
So the other half of where we're trying to solve the problem is great that you can get access to credit, but what is that form of credit? Well, stable coins are really focused on cross-border payments.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't matter if it was Western Union, ACH, stable coins. We are just trying to open up to a market that already exists that is using these trillions and trillions of dollars being used in stable coins that prove some level of validity towards someone's credibility, their payment obligations, things that they're actively involved in at an economic level. So I want to highlight that while we are enhancing reports with those types of payments and enabling the payment rails, it is not a focus that we have initially. The bleeding that we want to stop is the ITV victims, the identity theft victims, because with over 1 billion people breached last year, we're talking about an eighth of the population. So this breakout is worse than I think any um, medical issue that has ever occurred. And it's in the digital space where we're all growing into, right? We're all forming digital lives. And this is like leprosy times a million. And we want to solve this now because it's an easy solve, right? At the same time, this is penicillin. Like we're saying, look, just move this a little bit and we can scale to everybody, and we can scale to billions of people on very little public demand in resources, which then
Mm-hmm.
enables people to access resources at lower rates because hey, all of a sudden we're not spending so much on security, liability, recovery, tracking people down, and then filing suits against companies who didn't like. It sounds a lot nicer to just provide some guarantees
Mm-hmm.
and save a lot of people the overhead that is currently being the difference between life and death in many situations, or a roof over your head, or the ability to call the people you love and say, hey, I need help. Like that's where we're getting to this point. So yeah, a lot of personal drive on why I want to fix this. And we all know somebody. We all know somebody that's gone through this. It's not like I think the FBI estimated at the current rate of data breach, we can expect 1 in 4 people, it's currently 1 in 11, but 1 in 4 people will go through identity theft if we don't figure out a way to deal with this. And when we think of identity theft, a lot of people think, oh, my data is already out there, whatever. But when you start to understand what that affects directly, then you go, oh my God, this is important. Like, is this affecting my credit? I don't care if some, lady at a church buys a list of email names and has me on there and emails me, I just won't respond, right? But I do care if someone is putting together my personal information so that they can
Yeah.
impersonate me and then cause a lot of havoc that I have to clean up for years. And I just can't imagine many people uh being able to sit down, stop, and deal with that. Like I was lucky again in that situation. Like, hey, unlucky here that I went through it, but lucky I had family and friends who could give me the time to focus on the problem that I was dealing with real life, and then come out of that going, oh my God, like you guys are not going to believe what is happening out there. We need to fix part of this, just a small part.
Mhm.
Um, I encourage everybody to go read Ray Dalio, like every book he has too. It just helps us focus on what is the problem, and in a way that's not political, a way that's not Like there's no specific agenda. It's just explaining how our economy works and
Mhm.
why credit, you and I having $300 and another person having $300 is a lot more stable than a few people having trillions of dollars. And sure, they can still have their trillions of dollars, like they'll even have more than that when everything is stable for everybody. But the reality is we haven't looked far enough back into what the problem actually is, which is reputation scaled at a like global capacity, right?
Mhm.
That isn't tamperable, something that can't be manipulated or changed. Because you go back like all the way before bartering, credit was what actually existed. It's when you didn't have something to give to get, that's what credibility is, right? That's your reputation. And then further on, it was easy to mess up someone's reputation during medieval times. Think about like being able to just say they slept with the king's sister. Oh my God, okay, well, let's kill everybody that exists in that bloodline. And that was it. That was it. So you look at every society though that has ever grown,
Mhm.
what did they do first? Well, before all the inventions, before all the big things, they learned how to build a system of reputation so that they could operate as a collective. Now we need to take that good system and scale it to the rest of the world, six,
Mhm.
7 billion people, and we can't keep it central to one group anymore or a few groups because it just puts too much risk because there's too
Exactly.
much value. Like the value keeps growing, the risk keeps growing. Like we have to separate, we have to decouple them, like literally decouple them, so that
Mhm.
there's not enough incentive to hack a system that can facilitate. For instance, if you hack our system, you're stealing public receipts. Like, okay, like great job. Like there's no data encrypted in it. There's nothing that is hidden beneath the surface. It is literally a receipt that then can be hashed back to the report that the user holds on their own
Mhm.
device, right? And when it's their own device, we don't need to paywall anything. Like that's edge compute, that's edge storage. Like, why would we paywall your phone? So what that allows us to do then is operate at such a minimal cost that the big incumbents can't compete with us because we're giving away their revenue. Like
Mhm.
there is no like, hey, we're charging cheaper. It's we're not even charging for what you charge for. And on the other side, this opens up actually on this side first, it opens up the entire bottleneck for scaling. Like
Yeah.
providers no longer need to like pick and choose who they check on because they can verify at such a reduced cost to the system
Mhm.
that it doesn't, I'll check you, I'll check you, I'll check you. And so everybody gets a fair opportunity rather than being pre-filtered out. And at the same time, the provider actually gets more feedback, more information, more accurate because they're assessing a broader scale of people and data.
Mhm.
And so everybody wins here. And then you go, okay, well, what about the competitors, right? You just gave away their revenue. Well, we have a pretty good working plan where they don't want to continue sitting inside of a market that is already crumbling. It's like, do you want to sit inside of a burning building? No. The world of payments is getting much bigger,
Mhm.
and being able to collaborate with, for instance, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax to get them to, adopt our model so that they can reduce their costs and their liabilities is not a hard sell,
Yeah.
right? And be part of a bigger market. It's
Mhm.
so like this isn't something that we see as competing, but collaborating on every level
Yeah.
because it delivers to each party what they need, the pain point that they're dealing with. For instance, on average, the application process, 45% of people are being denied. That means 45% is no ROI for the provider that just purchased from, for instance, Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion. Now, that's great for the investors short term who are seeing revenue, but how do you think that affects the customer morale, the providers that are paying for that and saying, look, 45% of this does not even equal anything for us, yet we spend money on it. And so you have a lot of people who are not happy with the situation one layer down.
Mhm.
And when you expose that, you can say, look, how do we solve this for them? Well, Let them check people's reports at no cost, at scale that's completely open, bottleneck completely removed. And then that gives them the ability to actually assess what they know they need, which is better in our opinion, right? For instance, I think a bank or an auto dealership or a doctor's clinic may know what they're looking for in a person more than we know. And then they can connect the dots on the financial side, like, can they
Mhm.
afford this stuff? So that we've stepped away completely from thinking that we want to be assessments, like assessors of this. Like we
Yeah.
never did. But I want to be very clear, we do not make credit scores and we do not help facilitate the approval process. What we do is secure the the system from which a consumer can give a provider their information, and a competitor becomes a collaborator and a regulator becomes a protector, where they want to use our system because it protects all the parties involved at the same time. When the regulators have less work to do, needless to say, we pay them less because the public doesn't need as many of them, which is a good thing. That means our tax burdens go down, meaning, again, we can reduce the cost of resources. So
Mhm.
it's like such a boring category for most people, but it is the most important one of them all. Like, reputation plays a role in every market, at every layer, in every geographic location. Like, it exists. So if we can adjust how we deliver reputation in a safe and secure private way that
Mhm.
also feeds the capitalist need to invest in things that are, you know, going to bring value and economic prosperity, right? You need both. You can't just be like, hey, we're gonna Moses our way through this whole ocean and we'll find it someday. You have to have a very clear incentive and align everybody from a consumer, provider, competitor, and eventually partner and a regulator, right? So these parties, otherwise, someone will, maybe intentionally, but many times unintentionally, just get in the way because they're building and innovating too. So making it aware that what you're trying to do is accomplish those needs with each other um, has been very helpful for us, needless to say. Like, it's nice to be able to say we can deliver more private, more secure, cheaper, and cost efficient, while giving everybody more opportunities. Like that's not easy to say, but it's nice to be able to say it.
Thank you for that, Devin. And I know you mentioned that Fresh Credit is, tackling the data breaches in a new way. Could you dive into that a little bit? How is Fresh Credit gonna tackle data breaches and sensitive document handling? Um, and you mentioned that if anyone hacks Fresh Credit, the only thing they'll hack is receipts. So can you explain a little bit more on how that
Yeah,
works?
yeah. Well, straightforward. Every individual holds a local database. This
Mhm.
is very common to any app that you have on your phone right now is probably using SQLite, and we use a fork of SQLite. It is the most common database in the world. Like 2 trillion plus databases are deployed in SQLite. So, needless to say, very well known technology, and you on your own have what's called libsql, which is a fork of SQLite. The reason we went with this decision is mainly SQLite is kept up by 3 developers, which is great for security, but they don't allow any contribution. So you
Oh,
can't. Yes, the community is not allowed to, hey, we should update these things. It's just 3 guys. And that's fine. But some of us believe that might be a little bit of a security issue. So I went with the choice of libsql. These guys are great, and their cloud infrastructure, also called Terso. Reach out to Glauber, amazing CEO over there. And what ends up happening is it becomes really clear. Like, look, we're going to use blockchain as the validation, but
mhm.
the local database just needs to be something that people hold on their own. It's their report, it's their data and their information. And this draws a very clear line. And it's not just consumers, mind you, right? Providers also have their own reports and their own report information. Businesses have credit reports. And
Mhm.
so we want to provide those same guarantees to consumers and providers that they can hold their own information. And you can't provide that guarantee by putting everybody on the same spreadsheet and saying, look, there's a lot of fancy rules that keep it. It doesn't matter if someone breaches your system, they're not looking at your fancy rules, they're looking at the whole spreadsheet. And so just boiling it down and reducing complexity. It said,
Mhm.
look, just put the data on the person's phone. We're talking a credit report. So it's a JSON file, it's CSV spreadsheet. It's not like we're running a game engine here, right? So the idea of a person holding it was just straightforward, right? It's like arcades became Game Boys. Everything becomes handheld eventually, even in the digital sphere. And handheld, I mean, we carry a passport, we carry our ID, we carry our driver's license. But I don't check into the DMV every day before I get my car so I can drive. Like, why would I do that by checking on things in my life, right? In
Mhm.
general. And so yeah, that's how it's handled. It's no crazy security, things like that. It's separation of responsibility, right? By putting you, the consumer, in control of your own report, that naturally, not naturally, just mathematically reduces the vector, surface vector that can be attacked. Like you would literally have to attack every individual personally.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned Terso Cloud. Terso Cloud is native libSQL, but in the cloud.
Mhm.
And we can't access that backup, that redundant encrypted backup. Every redundant encrypted backup is keys to that are actually controlled by a DID. So we use Microsoft Entra right now, and we'll be integrating Kilt in the future so that it's completely a uh, decentralized, decoupled. So if you say, hey, I don't want to be part of the enterprise world of 600 million plus people that use Microsoft sign in for something, whether that's Xbox, Outlook, like you name it, right? There's a lot of things that use Microsoft. Um, I want to go off on my own. Well, there's a really cool technology named Kilt. We sat down with CEO Ingo Ruby, uh, and he told us about the world of DID. Right? It's a whole nother thing, like what we're trying to do here. But needless to say, these tools enable individuals to walk away from any network and port their data where they want to, right? But at the same time, we're not saying Web3, here we come. We're saying we believe in certain initiatives that are in the blockchain space. And
Mhm.
Web2, if it's going to ever transition, you have to build bridges. You can't just like forget everybody and everything and start building over there. Like you have to build bridges to bring people over. And so these things are tools that we use in our everyday life. We sign in using our face, we sign in using our email and our password. It's no different for us. But the only difference is that we're making it clear who maintains the responsibility of certain data. Like you already have an SQLite database on your phone with certain pieces of data that companies, when you sign terms and conditions, say, you hold that, we'll hold this. And now we're just making that more apparent. Like, okay, you're going to hold the report and everything that is part of the report. Whereas everything on the platform side, the engagement, this is public information for everybody to see that's beneficial for everybody to see, right? Not like your personal information, but information that everybody benefits from at platform surface level and receipts. So it's like you can tie things to people. And at the
Mhm.
same time, we're not talking about a decentralized network. We're talking about we deploy on GCP, on AWS, and we deploy in decentralized networks like Polkadot, which is soon transitioning to Jam. That way that it gives people optionality over the same exact experience. Like if you sign in
Mhm.
using Microsoft and you get a verified ID, DID from Microsoft, and you encrypt your database and you store it in the cloud, you can use your own Microsoft DID elsewhere. Has nothing to do with Fresh Credit, right? Just in the Microsoft world. But if you're like, I don't want to be part of the corporate infrastructure at all, right? Maybe you're just a lone consumer and you're not a consumer who's involved in working at one of these companies who also needs an overlapping identity, right? A government identity plus your local state ID.
Mhm.
Um, If you don't need that, maybe you say, look, I just need this to be able to access this tool, but I don't want to be signing into a government database. We can
Mhm.
help there. And that's a huge portion of the world when you talk about the adoption of 6 billion, 7 billion people that don't have a basic document. They need options in order to even start that faucet, right? That maybe they need cross-border payment proof and that they pay in stable coins, but they don't have an actual ID in the country they're in Africa for some reason, which is a lot of
Mhm.
people. But they have years of proof from a specific wallet that they've been making payments, and they can tie these two things together. Well, all of a sudden now you've brought somebody into the economy that helps brace the economy, and all of us get to make a little bit less weight on our shoulders and help a lot more people in the process, and a lot cheaper rate as well. It was crazy. Doesn't usually happen like that.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, this move of giving people that responsibility of holding their own credit scores is, I mean, not only protecting them, but it also reduces cost on your side, right? That's
Yeah.
how you're able to do the free options,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
consumers. So,
100%. I mean, the only way we can deliver a service at that rate, at the rate that we're talking about, is
mhm,
the separation of responsibility, being able to store that data and compute that data at the phone level. But that goes back to, like, we're not making a game engine, we're making a verification engine. And so the phones can compute a lot more in that realm.
mhm,
And those things combined are why the now makes perfect sense. And I know I went on and on about this in some sense that it's a problem for me, but I want to highlight that the CFPB did a report that showed that 76% of all the complaints filed with the CFPB are currently about the credit bureaus, right? That's three
oh,
businesses.
well,
And the other 4,400 institutions, which includes Chase, JP Morgan, Bank of America, American Express, those guys are the other, 24% in total, right? So three businesses have more complaints than 4,400 other businesses combined by 24x on average. So this is insane. And then you drill down into what the complaint is about those businesses, and it's
mhm,
inaccurate credit reports is 67% of the complaint relationship. And
yeah,
then resolution to that is another, like, I don't know, probably 10, 15%. And so you look at this and you're like, look, three companies are getting the majority of all the complaints in the world, in the entire US at least, and that's a hard job to do compared to Wells Fargo. Like,
mhm,
hey, I don't know if you've heard, but those guys did not do a lot of good things. And yet,
yeah,
the bureaus are still leading the way in consumer complaints, and that's a pain point in itself, right? Like, this needs to be solved. If a restaurant was known for getting your order wrong 36% of the time and you still had to pay, I'm pretty sure the food inspection guy would show up eventually and be like, hey, what's going on?
Thank you for that, Devin. I know you mentioned, fintech blockchain, and you're plugged into it. So, what's one shift that's happening right now that you think will catch most people by surprise in the next few years?
I'm a little biased. I do believe blockchain's going to make a second coming. That being said, it's maybe a third one. And I stand firmly on that because AI is booming, right? It's exploding everywhere. But the biggest problem AI has is a data source problem, right? That's what
Mhm,
all the battles are over. So the model that scales that for data for the models, that is going to be the one that surprises everybody. It's like, slingshotting off of what AI is going to do.
exactly.
And what it boils down to is AI needs good data. Well, good data needs good guarantees. And that's
Yeah.
the security guarantees we're talking about here. So this
Mhm.
is the credit versus innovation conversation where it's like, yeah, it's real fun, but you know that you can't ever innovate without credit, right? Like, that's how this works.
Mhm.
So you need your rich uncle to invest millions of dollars kind of scenario, metaphorically, right? Into the business for it to grow and scale at a
Exactly.
global level, right? And that's maybe then no longer a rich uncle if you're talking global scale of things, right? That's the reality. People are sold the dream that they can build and bootstrap and innovate in this world. And that's just not the case. Like every
Yeah.
bootstrapper eventually had to have somebody slingshot them to the next launch
Ex-
pad. Like that's just how it is.
And it's
And
something
so,
not everyone tells you, you know, it's like on the side stuff, like a side story on we got.
yeah, yeah. Every time it's like, hey, I got a crazy story for you. This is how it actually happened. And the reality is, it was someone's reputation spoke in favor of whatever you needed to accomplish and do, which led to the next chain of events. We are just trying to increase those amounts of times those chain of events occur at an accurate level, right? And so the more people that can prove locally, like this is who I am. And so that's an important part of the core feature for us is verification, right? We are a a system for verifying credit and payments, but
Mhm.
the actual system of credibility, we call that local verify, right? So we're a local first, and then we will, and down the roadmap, we're enhancing the local verify to be able to reduce the size of the verification requests so that we can serve billions of people on like thousands of dollars. And it changes because when the users are initiating these sequences, like, hey, I want to just have somebody babysit my kids. Let me verify locally they're a credible person, right? So
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to think about. Isn't just verifying a report for financial reasons. So that's why we have a nonprofit organization that is focused on this to
Mhm.
deploy local verify in a way that just enables economic activity, trust in one another, and being able to establish that in a real way, not like, oh, it's trust, it's fun, it's like, no, like let me verify this, but I
Mhm.
also don't want to give you all of my data. Like that's a
Exactly.
huge thing. Like what security guarantees does the individual user have in order to share, I want to send my Venmo username, but I don't
Mhm.
want to send you all of the transactions. And those guarantees that we get in simple applications is what unlocks scalability, saying, look, this is what we're going to do. This is not what we're going to do. And we can guarantee it.
Mhm.
That's the way we scale things because people then know what they're using and they encourage others to use it because they're getting the experience they were guaranteed.
Exactly. Yeah, I've never heard someone recommending, I don't know, using their credit score bureau or whatever. And
Oh,
on the flip side, what's a trend or development in the fintech blockchain industry or area you think is overhyped at the moment?
well, I'm gonna go stab the thing I just talked good about. Um, I think AI. I think AI is way too overhyped. So I back to the other one, like blockchain is gonna come out from the curtains because AI relies on it. And
Mhm.
that's also AI's Achilles heel. Like I'm fine with rappers in terms of people, taking OpenAI and building a company around it. I don't subscribe to the idea that you can't build viable businesses out of that. I also subscribe to people who are vibe coding and learning through the process of that, right? Vibe
Mhm.
coding is being overlooked as not a mostly as not a production based solution, which is correct. But in terms of educating developers and engineers how things work on the fly, you can't compete. Like you just ask a question about what you're trying to accomplish and what is in the surrounding area, you're cooked. Like that,
Mhm.
it really does well on. So um looking out for the companies that hype that their AI has some special sauce that's going to make them do something that no one else can do, that is a red flag to me, unless you have some proprietary model that people have invested tens of millions, if not billions of dollars into.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're probably using a wrapper, which is fine. That's the point. Like it's like saying you use faucets or you use the metric system. Like, yeah, I know because those are standard things that we should try to stick to. Um, yeah, AI will calm down. But this is I think it was Gartner that has the hype cycle
Mhm.
graph, and that's why I'm actually saying why blockchain is going up because we're at the bottom of the hype cycle graph on Gartner's for blockchain, and we're at the top of the hype cycle for AI. So I'm like, these two things are going to go like this when people realize that investors at least go, oh my God, that's why cybersecurity is hot again. That's why data integrity is hot again. That's why big data finally could become something
Mhm.
because big data is not a real industry. It doesn't actually exist. It's a few companies and they make a lot of mistakes. It's, the bureaus and the data furnishers. But big data, the reality of real big data comes in the form of a distributed system
Mhm.
that like what we're talking about where individuals hold their data and look at policy, right? Section 1033 is all about data portability and protecting consumer data and not scraping consumer data from websites. So if you just look where the policy is also a tailwind for products and services like what we're trying to accomplish, and this is
Mhm.
why we have supporters from the White House, from Senate, from Congress coming in, because this makes everybody's life easier and at the same time, less opportunities lost on both sides of the table for consumers and providers. So everybody gets to make more while promoting a safer system.
Oh, that was pretty good. Thank you, Devin. Now switching up gears, going into more general questions. So when markets get rocky, what do smart leaders like you do in this, you know, these hard times, and how do you manage them differently than everyone else?
So first, I can't tell you if I'm a smart leader in that respect. Secondly, I don't know how I manage them differently
Mhm.
because when things get rocky or uncertain, that's when I hunker down for myself and remind myself of my principles, my fundamentals, my rules for figuring my way through things that have worked. And
Mhm.
that's different for all of us. I mean, if you just kind of subscribe each person to an animal, a cat versus a dog versus a mouse, they all have an agenda to survive, but how they the features and functions that they have, the abilities they have design
Mhm.
the solution. And so you have to best know who you are in order to know like what you need to do to get through a certain situation. And to do that, I have to kind of close myself off. Not in a way like, emotionally, like I can't talk to people and I just disappear. But
Mhm.
when it's time to work on the solution that I'm providing the world, whether that's a day job or working on a startup or working on something that is bigger than a startup but still stresses you out just as much, then you have to look inward. Looking outward is endless possibilities, which leads to anxiety, at least for me, right?
Exactly. No, I agree. I totally agree.
And so when I'm looking for opportunity, though, when I'm looking for inspiration, I do the exact opposite. I start to like
Mhm.
walk around in public and daydream and look at things just kind of in the most cliche way. Like, because you need something to just be different that makes your
Mhm.
brain click. And so daily walks are a big part of that for me, right? I actually just schedule that in so that I can walk around and just stare at things and listen to my music and listen to a podcast, whatever it be. And I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, more like audiobooks, but
Um,
that is how I break my rhythm because once you've hunkered down and thought everything through, that you can only think so much. Then you have to like go the other way. And that cycle is what keeps me going, right? Being able to compare myself and what I'm doing, what I want to accomplish, and then making sure that I'm ingesting new information from the world that could potentially, I wouldn't even say that could potentially help you, because you should just kind of be out there looking and seeing for any inspiration, whether that's a technical problem, a creative problem, because branding is not as easy as a lot of technical people think, and technicals are complicated just from the get-go. So there you go. Like, both sides have to fight for the ability to concentrate. And if you
Mhm.
can concentrate, if you can focus, and that focus turns into value for someone else, then you're gonna find supporters. Like that, that's it. Like, somebody knows you're working really hard on something, and then that something will benefit each person that is part of it. There is someone that's eventually going to say something about you to someone else.
And that's pretty interesting because it ties to my next question of how do you build trust while innovating in a heavily regulated space?
Yes. Oh, okay. So I do it, but it's like hopscotch. So I want to preface this that we don't avoid regulation
Hmm.
to avoid regulation. We avoid regulation to avoid complexity. And we do that by simplifying the mechanism again, going back to, well, we are FCRA exempt and compliant because we uphold the rules even more by delivering a mechanism, local verify, local storage, local compute. So everything happens locally. Then we have the ability to actually say we provide these guarantees. Not a question of how much guarantee do we provide, it's guaranteed. There you go. And so our job is easier than it looks like from the outside, because users hold their data, because we don't sell reports, we don't have those compliance requirements, but we don't have them because we don't do the things that are regulated in the
Hmm.
first place. So that's why it's like we're not dealing with the nuclear materials, so we don't need the permits for it. It's a switching of understanding back to that responsibility. Whose responsibility is? Well, when it's no longer our responsibility to hold your data for you and sell your report, which we don't want to do in the first place, at least we don't. Well, then we're not regulated by the industry that deals with that. That's it. So again, the simple solution for us was to just not deal with that and partner with organizations and teams that do deal with that
Hmm.
and are able to be more modular. Like, for instance, libSQL and Terso are a database provider, right? Cloud and local, but they're not explicitly part of the credit industry. So you have to go out and you have to find technical partners that have aligned technical initiatives, and you can build a product with features and functions off of those those functions, right? The technical functions you build should lead to product features. Like, that's the
Hmm.
alignment, right? When you look at the roadmap. Hope
Awesome.
I
And
answered the
then,
question.
I mean, you did answer how you've been able to build trust while innovating. I think you gave a pretty good
But yeah,
answer.
so yeah, aligning our features and our product with like the technical capabilities. Like, hey, you guys can do that? That's awesome. We want to build that in here. And what do you think of our idea? And then they go, we love your idea. That uses our technology the right way. And then taking those technologies that provide those guarantees in those regulated spaces and saying, look, not only are we not breaking the rules, we're not breaking the rules like the best.
And you're helping everyone because you mentioned you're helping both consumers, lenders, businesses. You're lending a hand to everyone, opening up opportunities, opening up markets. So thank you for giving us that answer. Now, moving on to the challenges and opportunities, where do you see the biggest gaps in credit and payment infrastructure? I know you mentioned it, but if you could give us like a two-sentence summary of where you see the biggest gap and in the credit side of things and in the payment infrastructure side of things.
Yes. So a lot of individuals would say education. I don't think that's necessary when we talk about our identity theft victims. They don't need educating on what's wrong and what's going wrong, right? Like, if you're going into the ER, for the most part, something is wrong. So outside of that, though, credit in itself needs to be taught to individuals in a way that they can understand why it's so important for them and the surrounding public, right? The community, because you can leverage that together, leverage that individually. But at the same time, it's almost like air. Like you don't need to educate people to breathe. You just need to remind them every once in a while that not breathing is a bad thing, right? So, so making it that ubiquitous with how transactions work, well, that kind of comes in with the payment solution where because people are able to make the payment, their first payment and their obligations directly in the application process. So, hey, you're approved, make your payment. You condense the delivery time or the mechanism in the brain that connects the dots between, hey, I made my payment and it showed up on my report, and this is what affects everything else. Right now, we currently make a payment and it takes like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to show up. And you're like, when was the actual right date to make? And eventually you get good at it, but that is a problem in itself because now you have people manipulating their credit scores, making their payments in ways that are going to reflect them as better than what they may actually be in real life. And those little bits add up to a lot of bits when there's a lot of people doing that. So you talk about the beginning of it doesn't solve the problem with identity theft because of data breaches,
Mhm.
and that's going on the rise. Uh, then you talk about the end part, it's like people who figured out how to manipulate, and can you blame them at that point? It's like saying, don't put the right answer on the test, don't you do it? It's like, how do I not put the right answer on the test if I know the right answer? And so you have to restructure the system in a way that enables and incentivizes everybody to engage still. And you go, okay, the rules are actually more fair in everybody's respect. Everybody gets a little bit more flexibility. And at the same time, everybody gets a little more respect and guarantees of their privacy and the security. Sorry, what was the question though? I know that there was
The biggest gaps in credit and payment
so
infrastructure.
education after you deal with the hemorrhaging issues, right? The initial things, those don't need education, and then changing people's mind about what it is so that they
Mhm.
engage faster because there's not a real adoption issue. If you have a phone, it works, and there's 5 6 7 billion people estimated to have smartphones by 2030. So when you look at that, there's no barrier to entry in that
Mhm.
respect. It's just a hesitancy to cross over and say like, I'm going to try a different system that I may not have the best feelings about based on all the people who have been part of it. You know, the 76% of the complaints, it's like, hey, that restaurant sucks, go try it out. It's like,
And
no.
it's your only option. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You get it.
And I know you mentioned that there was an October launch happening. You guys have been really busy this year. If adoption takes off, where do you think your biggest operational bottlenecks might be for this October launch?
Oh, engineers, like just more people to build. Like we're building all Rust native stack,
Mhm.
so there's a lot of security guarantees that we get naturally out of the box.
Mhm.
And mention some of the partners that we are working with as well are also Rust native. So it makes our life a lot easier, a lot less technical debt to worry about. We don't have to worry about the polyglot issue, people needing to know multiple languages. So we can focus all of our effort on, problems that are specific to Rust. If you guys, if anybody's going to be at RustCon this year in Seattle, let me know. It's September. It's 3 days. We'll be out there. Um, but yeah, it would definitely be education. Oh, sorry, I went back to the other question. But we were talking about. Can you repeat
Bottleneck
the question? The bottleneck, yes.
for October.
But I would say that everything else is aligning for us. The White House put up a couple initiatives for US blockchain technologies, supporting
Mhm.
those. So
Mhm.
that's an enabler for us. You've seen, of course, Circle's support for Clarity
Okay.
and the Genius Act. So that
Mhm.
opened up bottlenecks we were concerned with on regards to cross-border payments,
Mhm.
and which is again how we want to build, or at least one vein of data that we would like to ingest to help people build their credit reports that don't have a typical bank account, with Chase. Maybe they have a Circle account or a Coinbase account, and that's how they facilitate a lot of their payments using a Coinbase debit card. So
Mhm.
we have to look at those things. Bottlenecks. In our situation, it's mostly roadblocks, and a lot of those roadblocks have come down with recent like policy changes.
Mhm.
And because on the technology side, I mean, it's pretty kick-ass. Rust is amazing, and like most of the companies building with Rust know why they're building with Rust, and so they're all kick-ass and amazing too.
Mhm.
And that momentum breaks down a lot of bottlenecks community wise. People want to help, people want to reach out. And with the better guarantees, you actually have less edge cases that you're driving yourself crazy with, less problems that you're like, what could this possibly be? So our bottlenecks is finding engineers developing in Rust who are all in on Rust and maintaining a system that can scale to billions of people, because
Mhm.
when we talk about our product, our service, it is applicable at every local level. Like every single person needs a credit report. You don't share a credit report. Like there's not a family plan for the Experian. And the like now it does kind of shift when you talk about a provider report, because the business is built off of that, and the business was initially built off of the consumer report, the first person who started the company, right? And so these types of things evolve, which is why we're not really worried about that bottleneck, right?
Mhm.
Considering that it's a uniform experience for both of them until one of them says, "Hey, I want to open a business," and then it becomes a provider. Uh, but yeah, bottleneck, just people who believe that it's possible to build the things that we can build now. That's the craziest part when you tell people what is possible, and they're like, "That's insane." And then we're over here like, "But we want to build a PDF. How's that sound?"
All right, thank you for that. And then one more challenge and opportunity question. What metrics are you most focused on in your first 12 months post-launch? What are your biggest,
Well,
most important metrics internally?
uh, user adoption, right from the get-go. I'm not too concerned with the high user adoption, because that would be pretty weird in a financial application, like who hangs out in their banking app all day.
Yeah.
So it's not social media, but user
Mhm.
adoption, people who complete a transaction and showing that this is a viable solution. Because when we break up those responsibilities, then the only barrier to entry is hesitation, and hesitation is mitigated directly by, is it being adopted or not?
Yeah.
And then all the other factors are part of that. But seeing individuals willing to operate in a system that provides them essentially the same experience they're already going through. So it's like, hey, I don't want to take care of one more thing, but making it a valuable enough situation where
Mhm.
it's like, okay, well, I'll do it when I want to get a phone from T-Mobile, or I'll do it when I want to apply for an auto loan. So getting user adoption at those critical moments is going to be a big one for us, measuring where it's coming from
Mhm.
and what industries are seeing the most value return. And think of it this way: when we talk to providers, we're essentially saying, look, this is how many people are affected by a data breach. This is how many people go through identity theft. So statistically, this is how much revenue you're losing by potentially misclassifying someone who could. So then let's have you direct those users that fail because of that through our system, which then costs us fractions and fractions and fractions, right? So we can
Mhm.
afford to do that. They then are saying, okay, I'll try this new system. But at the same time, most of us have used Plaid to connect it to something, a bank account, an investment app, something like that. And so the process is straightforward, and we're relying on Plaid's simplicity right there, right? Proven track record. And then enabling a person to get an answer on something they want, right? Because no one's gonna run to the app store excited to sign up for a credit app. But they will run to the app store to sign up for a credit app if it means that they can get a phone, a car, a home, get into school. That makes all the difference. And those are critical moments in life. They're not like your daily comment you make on something.
I mean, and additionally, I think the fact that it's free and I'm not risking anything to open up an account with you guys. It's opening me opportunities, not the other way around. So I think, post launch, you guys will do great, especially with the team that you have, and with the leadership team. Now we're doing a quick fire prediction game. This is something we do at the end of every podcast. I'll throw out a category or a question. You give me like a 10-second prediction, and we'll move to the next one. So the first one is a fintech trend you think will fade.
Earning programs. I think earning programs will soon come to an end because the gamified experience it's broken.
One fintech trend that's just getting started.
Calendar sync, knowing when your bills are exactly needed to be paid and aligning those, because that's the subscription models that are being used to cancel subscriptions. That's serving that problem. So if you just knew, payment sync is a lot more complicated though than people think
That's really
with calendars.
down. And then one bold prediction for credit reporting in the next 24 months.
That it will become a distributed system.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And now some closing remarks. If you could give one piece of advice to innovators in slow-moving, highly regulated industries, what would it be?
Be certain about every decision you make to the nth degree possible, because you have to navigate carefully, and any setback can be a long time in these industries. So just be certain about the things. Measure twice, cut once. Measure as many times as they'll let you measure.
And then where can listeners follow your journey and Fresh Credit's journey after October? Well, from now through October.
Yeah, freshcredit.com. And then from freshcredit.com or freshcredit.org if you're interested in our nonprofit impact alignment, right? Like we're really trying to push that as well. Like people in other countries could definitely do with a free credit report and infrastructure. So yeah, if you're interested in volunteering, hit us up there. If you're interested in investing or joining the team, freshcredit.com.
Awesome. Devon, thank you for your time. This has been a fantastic podcast. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and giving us a look at what's coming with Fresh Credit this October. We're really excited to see that impact you and your team will make in this space. For everyone listening, you can follow Devon's journey at freshcredit.com, and we'll link those in the show notes. Devon, thanks again for being on the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you.